Hey YouTube, it's Eric. I'm gonna try to keep this video. I may end up going an hour, so I'm gonna try to keep this not too long. But I just wanted to. This is just a follow up to the stream I did with Clint uh, yesterday, and honestly, just genuinely shocked at the. I wasn't aware that this. I've been going through the Architect of the Capitol website after I became aware that there are two plaques of the popes that actually created the Inquisition, the Bloody Inquisition. The I'll show you these here. These come right from these are in the U.S. Capitol building. These are over the galley doors. You see Pope Innocent III and Pope Gregory the Ninth. Gregory the Ninth is actually the Pope that formally created the Inquisition. Innocent launched the Crusades. So this is crazy, and like they view. I'll show you the quotes from the. This is irrefutable. It comes from .gov, Architect of the Capitol.gov. So you see, this is why the Jesuit Pope Francis, was in a very comfortable, natural position when he came to visit in 2015. And that's why you can see like the huge standing ovation that Jesuit Pope Francis got in 2015. This is, some of the reason for that, some of this background occult symbolism. It's all right in the U.S. Capitol building. And you have to remember, like, the Washington itself, that this is documented in the post I did on the first mayor of Washington, D.C. The land, now known as Washington, D.C., was known as Rome on the Potomac back in 1663. Here's a quote from Tupper Saucy's book, Rulers of Evil, page 4. Consider the land known today as the District of Columbia bore the name of Rome in the 1663 property records, and the branch of the Potomac River that bordered, quote, Rome on the south was called the, quote, Tiber, just like it is in Rome. And that, the Vatican, admits this in their official encyclopedia. This comes from the New Advent Encyclopedia. I believe is just a reprint of the official Catholic Encyclopedia, but they admit it, like in their official encyclopedia. In 1669, a parcel of land called Rome was laid out of Francis Pope. Look, Francis Pope, Francis Pope, Pope Francis. So the guy who actually owned the land, called a parcel of land called Rome, was laid out at Francis Pope, extending to the south of an inlet called Tiber. This gentleman, the Pope of Rome on the Tiber, was a sheriff of Charles County. That means Francis Pope was a sheriff of Charles County, and in all probably a Catholic. But you look at that. I've heard Johnny make this point too. I think this was in the interview he did with Sean Stone. But this Francis Pope Jesuit Pope Francis connection is basically like the Ouroboros alchemical. We're squaring the circle. Tupper Saucy goes into some of the Kabbalistic numerology and the founding of America in his book, Rulers of Evil, and Johnny goes into that also in the Illuminati Unmasked. And like George Washington, the child prodigy, this is admitted right here on the usc.edu. George Washington ghost writ his 110 rules of civility and decent behavior in company and conversation from a French manual of Jesuit etiquette of 1595. Here's the quote. By the age of 16, George Washington had copied out by hand 110 rules of civility and decent behavior in company and conversation. They are based on a set of rules composed by French Jesuits in 1595. Presumably, they are copied out as a part of an exercise in penmanship assigned by young Washington's schoolmaster. End quote. And actually, here's some symbolism here. So I wrote here, a Roman fascist can even be seen on the painting. This is the official apotheosis of Washington painting that's in the Capitol building, just like how the Roman Capitol. And this is the reason why there's an obelisk in Washington, D.C., just like how there's an obelisk at the Vatican in Rome, or an obelisk right at St. Peter's Square. You see here, so the fasces is being held by the Roman goddess Columbia, like a Roman goddess figure on the left of George Washington in the painting. And I have this linked here. And there's the Roman fasces. And this painting was designed by a papal artist, Constantino Bramidi. And I'll show you there's more symbolism in the house, because Constantino Bramidi designed the Bermuda corridors that's located in the Senate building. And the Bermuda corridors was an identical replica of the Raphael Loggias that's present at the Vatican. So here's the Raphael Loggias commissioned by Empress Catherine II. And this is in the Papal Palace in the Vatican. And it's admitted on the official U.S. government website that the Bermuda corridors, right here in the U.S. Senate, or they're in the Bermuda corridors are part of the wing of the U.S. Capitol constructed by Thomas U. Walter between 1852 and 1859. Although Walter had envisioned plain-colored walls hung with a few oil paintings, superintendent of construction. And I've seen a photo of this Captain Montgomery C. Wags doing the Masonic hidden hand. So he was part of the Brotherhood. But you see, Captain Montgomery Wags directed Constantino Bermuda to carry out an elaborate decorative scheme based on Raphael's Loggia in the Vatican. Would you look at that? So it's really right in plain sight. This is coming right from the government website right here. Bermuda's classical training in Rome gave him a thorough understanding of ancient Roman, Renaissance, and Baroque styles, symbols and techniques of wall painting. Symbols and techniques of wall painting. He began making designs for the corridors in 1856, and the painting of the walls and ceilings was carried out primarily between 1857 and 1859. Bermuda added details in scenes in the 1860s and painted frescoes in the lunettes over the doorways in the 70s. So here's a photo of Bermuda on the left and the Raphael's Loggia in the Vatican. And like this was literally like the official Bermuda corridors is like they're telling you right on the official government website that the Bermuda corridors were directly modeled off of Vatican architecture, that being the Raphael Loggia. There's all sorts of interesting allegorical figures here. They even have I'm not going to read all of this information because I don't want the video to go on too long. They actually interesting have this Roman eagle right here. Actually, I got to pull this up now because in I archived a Life magazine article from 1937 when the Duchess Genevieve Brady, the wife or the late wife of Nicholas Frederick Brady, who was the first American to be given the Supreme Order of Christ, a Papal Knight of Malta, and a director of over 50 corporations. But so Genevieve Brady was a papal duchess. She inherited the Bradys. They were already an established aristocratic, family. Nicholas Frederick. What was the father's name? I think John Brady. The point being, they were an established, wealthy Catholic family. So when the papal duchess in 1937, she gave her entire estate to the Jesuits. This estate is worth millions and millions of dollars, right in the prime of Long Island. But yeah, this is the photo here. The Duchess Brady had this heavy Gregorian table. It looks like in this Gregorian table, is distinctly Romanesque. And this is, you see the heavy Gregorian table has a mosaic top made in Roman times. It shows a bird in a chariot driving two wild animals. The front support is a great gilded eagle. Note in the back the finely fluted Ionic pilasters in the wall paneling. And this mansion was called Innisfada on Long Island. But this is like an identical eagle to what you see here in the Bermuda corridors, almost identical. And actually, they even have a portrait of the Jesuit-educated Charles Carroll, who I'll show you that Charles Carroll, who was related to the Jesuit priest John Carroll, the S.J., the founder of Georgetown University. Charles Carroll actually has a statue of him at the Congress building. You see, so along the walls of the West Corridor, Bermuda painted monochrome profile portraits of famous early Americans: John Hancock, Francis Hopkinson, Robert Livingston, Roger Sherman. That's a papal Jesuitical connection. John Jay, Charles Thompson. You see here the Jesuit connection: Charles Carroll and Robert Morris. And so they're set in medallions to resemble reliefs carved in stone. Would you look at that? So this entire Bermuda corridor is modeled right off the Vatican. Admitted here, right from the government website. So that's interesting fact. I'm sure not many Americans are aware of this, and it's right in plain sight. It's on the Capitol building. And this is first further symbolism, like the official Cornerstone Centennial plaque. You see, this is the official plaque. You can see here. Let me see if I can zoom in on the photo. Well, this is like the official plaque of the United States Congress. Okay, beneath this tablet, the cornerstone of the Capitol of the United States of America. Okay, so this is a cornerstone, and then you see the Roman fascias are on both sides of the cornerstone. You see, you can't make it up. It's hidden right in plain sight that they're completely controlling the United States government. Essentially, like modeled, like the Jesuits, like modeled the U.S. government off of like the ancient Roman Republic. If you want to read a bit into the Jesuit founding of America, you can read the book here by Tupper Saucy, Rulers of Evil, published in 1999. It's and he actually Saucy goes into he goes into detail of the story of the Lorenzo Ricci in America, and that's actually detailed in this book here. You can get it for free on archive.org. Called Our Flag, written by Robert Campbell. And Manly P. Hall actually quotes out of this Robert Campbell book in his book here that I got, The Secret Destiny of America and America's Assignment with Destiny. But it's in this book where Lorenzo Ricci makes that grand astrological quote. Let me pull this up here. Because supposedly, Lorenzo Ricci was in a prison in the Vatican because the Jesuits were supposedly suppressed right at this time, at 1775. But really interestingly, like the Order of the Illuminati was created only 2 months before the United States was created. And we know the founder of the Order of the Illuminati, Adam Weishaupt, was essentially a lay Jesuit who spent his entire childhood with the Jesuits, and Adam Weishaupt, the founder of the Illuminati, became a professor in Roman Catholic canon law. And the Illuminati was founded only 2 months before the United States. And in Manly Hall, it says in this book, and Robert Campbell shows it, and Saucy shows it, the professor was said to be over 70 years old. Ricci was over 70 years old. He literally was a professor. It's even on his Wikipedia page. Ricci was a philosophy professor. Yeah, he taught at the College of Rome. He taught at Siena in Rome. So, it makes a ton of sense. Tupper Saucy makes a great case that Lorenzo Ricci was this professor figure mentioned. And the initial source for this goes back to Robert Campbell's book here, Our Flag. And you can notice, like, the American flag is essentially just like the flag of the British East India Tea Company, which is like a mercantile business that the Jesuits control, because the Jesuits control the majority of mercantile business. I was even reading just Joseph McCabe. I have a book. I got like one of his little blue books on my archive.org page recently. It's called The Jesuits' Rogue Priests. So you can see that. Joseph McCabe quotes like someone who worked for the French East India Tea Company, who said that the Jesuits had tons and tons of money. It's an interesting quotation. Yeah, this is the little blue book here from McCabe that I enjoyed going through this. It's only 68 pages or so, but it's called Jesuits, Religious Rogues, published in 1927. Okay, but this is the quote that Lorenzo Ricci supposedly said here. He said, "The son of our political heir," and this is quoted in Robert Campbell's book here too, but Manly Hall, I'm reading out of Manly Hall's book, The Secret Destiny of America. Okay, let's go back to Ricci here. Then I'm going to go right back to the symbolism. This is just some context. So the sun of our political heir, like the sun in the heavens, is very low in the horizon, just now approaching the winter solstice, which it will reach very soon. But as the sun rises from his grave in Capricorn, mounts towards his resurrection in Aries, and passes onward and upward to his glorious culmination in Cancer, so will our political sun rise and continue to rise in power and light. And just to briefly interrupt here, the source for this is Lord Robert Montagu's book, and it's titled "On Some errors concerning religion and politics. It's a book that Lord Robert Montagu translated from Italian before he left the Roman Catholic Church, and he actually wrote a later book denouncing the Jesuit plot to take over the world. But in that book I just cited from Lord Robert Montagu, the Pope is actually referred to as a sun, and it said that the rays of the Pope's the rays of the Pope like will lighten the nations of the earth, just like how natural sunlight lightens the earth. Okay, and actually, and James Edward Quigley has the famous quote here that I have this source from the Chicago Tribune. He famously said that when the Catholic Church rules, when the United States rules the world, the Catholic Church will rule the world. That's basically what I think Lorenzo Ricci is saying here. That's exactly what he's saying here, actually. That's a profound realization. Okay, so Archbishop Quigley said in 1903, within 20 years, this country is going to rule the world. Kings and emperors will soon pass away, and the democracy of the United States will take their place. The West will dominate the country, and what I've seen of the Western patriarchal schools has proved that the generation which follows us will be exclusively Catholic. When the United States rules the world, the Catholic Church will rule the world. This is quoted from the Chicago Tribune, May 5th, 1903, by the Archbishop of Chicago, James Edward Quigley. And that's basically, I think, what Lorenzo Ricci is saying here in veiled astrology. The Jesuits are very into occultism in general. You see, so Ricci says, but as the sun rises from his grave in Capricorn and mounts towards his resurrection in Aries, that's the Pope's temporal power, and passes onward and upward to his glorious culmination in Cancer. So our political sunrise, the power of the United States government. You see, so the rise of the Pope's temporal power and the rise of the United States government is one and the same simultaneously. That's what he's saying. So will our political sun rise and continue to increase in power and light and in glory, and the exalted sun of summer will not have gained his full strength of heat and power in the starry lion until our colonial sun will be in its glorious exaltation, demanding a place in the governmental firmaments alongside of, coordinate with, in no wise subordinate to any other son of any other nation upon earth. You see, the United States government, the only body I've seen the U.S. government submit to is the Vatican. I haven't seen them submit to any other group. You can link one in the description if you can think of one. I've yet to see the United States government back down to any body except the Catholic Church. I haven't seen it yet. You see here, Manly Hall even says that the change, he says the professor, which is Lorenzo Ricci, I'm just going to say Lorenzo Ricci. Lorenzo Ricci went on to point out that the flag, which he recommended, the flag of the United States, would be subject to change in the future as the national destiny increased. This change, however, should not require a complete redesigning, but a process of gradual modification, end quote. And so Manly Hall quotes Lorenzo Ricci, and that's why the U.S. flag is identical to the flag of the British East India Tea Company. And you guys can, if you just type in the flag of the British East India Tea Company to the flag of the United States, you'll see that they're essentially identical. And this all ties in because I'm going to show you the busts of Innocent III in the U.S. Capitol building. And Innocent III was Pope when the British Empire lost its sovereignty to the back in 1213. So it all ties in, and the Treaty of 1783, the peace treaty between the United States and Britain. King George III of Britain is referred to as the treasurer of the Holy Roman Empire. Literally, he's referred to as the treasurer of the Holy Roman Empire. Okay, but this is I'll just finish up this quote here from Ricci. To make it announce and represent the new nation which is already gestating in the womb of time, and which will come to birth, and that not prematurely but fully developed and ready for the change into independent life before the sun in its next summer strength ripens our next harvest. And when he's saying sun, he's referring to the Pope, because the Pope is referred to the sun And there's other references too. Like I know Leo H. Lehman quoted a Vatican document saying that the Pope is like the sun to the moon, who is like the the Holy Roman Emperor, and just so like how like the sun moon is like moon derives its light from the sun, that like all political temporal authorities derive their light from the Pope. That's basically that's what Ricci's saying. You know, Jesuits are the master of double talk and veiling their esoteric political plans into text and the grandiose sounding sophistry. But this is really what he's saying. So before the Pope's temporal power and its next summer's strength ripens our next harvest. Okay, so that's just some background there, and you can read about Lorenzo Ricci and the Jesuits creating the United States in Tupper Saucy's book, Rulers of Evil. And there's actually even like before I just move on to more of the symbolism, this journal article I believe was written by a Jesuit, but there's a journal article that was written on the Jesuit priest John Carroll that was from the official Vatican publication house, the Archivum Historiae Pontificiae, Volume 6, issue 1978. This was written by James Hennessy, S.J. This is written on the Jesuit priest John Carroll. John Carroll was the direct agent of he was the number 2 Jesuit in terms of the Jesuit command at this time at the founding of America. John Carroll would have been directly number 2 to Lorenzo Ricci. And then in this article, John Carroll is actually referred to as the Lorenzo Ricci of America. I just want to find this quote before I move on because it kind of ties everything in. Yeah, so he has a little part here, Lorenzo Ricci Redivitus. A standard charge against, let me see, going back here. Okay, a standard charge against Jesuit John Carroll was that he was organizing the clergy, or that he favored his ex-Jesuit brethren in terms of organizing the clergy. It was made by the Meath diocesan priest Patrick Smith in a pamphlet called The Present State of the Catholic Missions conducted by the ex-Jesuits in North America, and by the French priest Claude de la Potière in The Resurrection of Laurent Ricci, or A True and Exact History of the Jesuits. The Resurrection of Laurent Ricci. So that title of that pamphlet, makes it think that, Ricci didn't actually die while he was supposedly locked up in a completely I bet it was a very unsecured prison, because the prison I am aware that the prison that he supposedly resided at was only a mile or so away from the Jesu Church, where the headquarters of the Society of Jesus is. So this pamphlet was dedicated to, quote, the new Lorenzo Ricci in America, the Reverend Father John Carroll. That's the quote I wanted to find there. And there's so much this information here. Another quote on John Carroll, just the key from Appleton's Encyclopedia. This was quoted in 1887, but it said here, no greater power of combined wealth, intellect, and enthusiasm existed anywhere in America than the union of the Carrolls and the Jesuits in Maryland in the person of John Carroll. So all the evidence lines up to this the story from Robert Campbell's Our Flag book, actually being true. I think there's lots of truth to it. Because you'll see, for instance, this is unprecedented power. Going back here to symbolism, literally the National Security Agency admits on their website that the silver key in its logo represents the Pope's temporal power. And literally, this shows the NSA is acting just as the ancient confessional system did back in the Inquisition too. Everyone was subject to have their house raided to make sure that they weren't reading heretical books that criticized the Pope or the Church. Because if you criticize the Catholic bishops, you must be a servant of Satan. That was the logic back in the days. But literally, so this is the photo of the National Security Agency logo. You see here, this is the Pope's, in the official Pope's logo. They have a silver key and a gold key crossing like this. But this is the Pope's temporal power. Literally, this is a Roman eagle. The Roman eagle is on like every single, or like the more popular, I guess, the Gregorian eagle is on every single like, U.S. seal, government seal. But you hear the silver key. This is the Pope's silver key right here. Literally, they admit this. I show here in this article, this is the same silver key that appears on the NSA logo, and I have the transcript, and I have the footage on my channel. George Bush, in a 2008 interview with the journalist Raymond Arroyo, said that he saw God in the eyes of Pope Benedict XVI. The thing about discussing that is Pope Benedict XVI, Joseph Ratzinger drafted the disgusting document Crimen Solicitans back in the 60s when he was the head of the Inquisition, the Congregation of the Doctrine of the Faith. And this infamous document created by Pope Benedict XVI before he was Pope advised all the hierarchy in the Catholic Church, if cases of sex abuse or pedophilia came up, to not report it to the authorities. And George Bush said he saw God in the eyes of this Pope. And it's just the inquisitorial spirit is still alive, because I'm going to show you the bust of Pope Innocent III is in the House of Representatives. I was honestly shocked when Clint brought that up on the last stream here. But this is the quote here from the NSA website. I have all the links here. In the article, they said, so that silver key I showed you, the NSA says the dexter and sinister talons of the bird clutch a silver key. The key is in the eagle's talons, representing the key to security. The key to, are you kidding me? The key to security. Evolved from the emblem of Saint Peter the Apostle. Saint Peter the Apostle is supposedly the first pope, and his power to loose and to bind. It also symbolizes the mission to protect and gain access to secrets. Would you look at that? And I was actually reading the Jesuit Thomas Rees. I put his book on my archive.org page. His book written in 1996. I think it's called Inside the Vatican. But Thomas Rees, predictably as a Jesuit, props up the propaganda that the Apostle Peter was the first pope. But then right after, he says that the Vatican is the most secretive organization in the world. This is admitted from a Jesuit, Thomas Rees. And I have a video of him talking about, down in my feed, talking about the relationship between the Catholic Church and Obama. It's worth watching. It's about 10 minutes or so. The Jesuit Thomas Rees is quoted as saying the Vatican has always been a close supporter of the United Nations, for instance. And I have a video of that same Jesuit actually being called out by Lou Dobbs live on CNN October 5th, 2009. Actually, I recently just put that on my blog. But you see right here, right from the NSA website, they're telling you that the key is the Pope's temporal power. Okay, and that's why Edward Snowden is a complete gatekeeper, supposedly enlightening people about how the NSA works. Edward Snowden reached out to a Jesuit trained at Georgetown lawyer, Plato Chatteris. Completely just a controlled opposition character, comes from an intelligence family background. Snowden props up the official story of 9/11. You see here, the official catechism of the Catholic Church says that St. Peter is the first Pope of Rome, and that he passed down the keys of loosening and binding to the Pope. That is seen here. You see the Bishop of Rome, Pope is Peter's successor. So that's unprecedented. They're literally telling you on their seal that this is the Pope's silver key. But just going back, so going here to more of the symbolism in the Capitol. So I mentioned on the show with I mentioned this on a few streams and a couple of my individual videos. But in the book Slavery and Catholicism and the Vatican Billions by Avram Manhattan, you can read details about the papal bull Inter Carrera that was signed by Pope Alexander VI of Rodrigo Borgia. The bull was signed in 1492, late 1492, early 1493 era. And the bull Inter Carrera actually gave the entire property of North and South America to the Pope. And this, this falls in line with the Pope's papal bull Unum Sanctum of 1302, which declares for salvation's sake that everyone must be subject to the Roman pontiff for salvation's sake. But in 1492, the papacy and the bull Inter Carrera actually assigned Christopher Columbus to conquer North and South America for the Catholic Church, and that's why Columbus Day is a celebrated day for Roman Catholicism. And the Knights of Columbus, who used the Roman fasces in their seal, which I'm going to go into a bit more in this video, the Knights of Columbus are named after Christopher Columbus. And when Teddy Roosevelt, I showed on previous videos, was speaking to the Knights of Columbus at Carnegie Hall in 1907, he said that the Knights of Columbus were like essentially, or Teddy Roosevelt said that Christopher Columbus is one of the founders of this country. But hidden right in plain sight, there's at the Congress building, there are something called the Columbus doors. And this one door is here called, where is the Pope here? Yeah, they literally have the Pope Alexander VI on the door. Like, and this door is called the Titanium. No, so pardon me, I got a little cough here. Started taking some Halls. Hopefully that helps. You see here, so the panel though on the left side of this the Titanium door. I'm just going to get you the name here so you can see that this is right from the government website, Titanium. So you see landing of Columbus in the New World, 1492. You see here that this panel depicts the Spaniards taking possession. They took possession through the Pope's papal bull that gave them the legal means to do it by erecting a cross on the island of Hispaniola. One of the sailors is carrying an Indian girl who he has taken prisoner on his shoulders, as Columbus shows his disapproval. I don't know if he would have disapproved necessarily. The panel is flanked by statuettes of Pope Alexander VI. Would you look at that? This panel is flanked by statuettes of Pope Alexander VI, who supported Spain's claim to the new land, like I showed you here with the papal bulls, Inter Carrera, and then later the Treaty of Tordesillas, and Francisco Pizarro. Would you look at that? The panel is flanked by the statuettes of Pope Alexander VI. Unbelievable. Here's Alexander VI in the U.S. Capitol building. Just unbelievable. No, just showing you that really, truly, that the U.S. has been the sword of the Catholic Church. Or that was like the intention for the grand experiment. Here's Pope Alexander VI here on the left. You can see here the papal tiara, the three-tiered hat. This is right here on the Columbus doors on the left side. This is one of the most infamous popes ever. Like on the New World Encyclopedia, it even says that Pope Alexander VI assumed the papacy. Like basically says he bought the papacy, via bribes and corruption. He had notorious orgies in the Vatican. He's gonna. I know this Borgia is gonna be a big figure in Johnny's upcoming book. But he's literally at the U.S. Capitol. It's unbelievable. So now going to the busts. Here are the busts of. That's better there. I apologize for the cough. Okay, here are the busts of Innocent III and Gregory IX. Would you look at this? So these are inquisitorial popes. These are in the U.S. Like you see here, Gregory IX, author of a compilation of decretals of canon law. During a critical period, he was instrumental in maintaining the remnants of Roman law. Gregory IX was actually the pope who excommunicated the entire German Empire because that was the era in which Emperor Frederick II breathed in. Gregory IX set up the Inquisition, and they say here. So there's 23 of these marble relief portraits. We went over this in the chat I did with Clint on the last. I titled it "The Corporation Nation." We said so. Pope Gregory IX is one of the 23 marble relief portraits over the gallery doors of the U.S. Chamber and the U.S. Capitol. And these depict historical figures noted for their work in establishing principles that underlie American law. Really, so They were installed when the chamber was remodeled in 1949, 1950. I did a separate video on this. So these were installed right in around the same time where the Papal Knight Jesuit trained John McShane designed the Pentagon building and a host of other buildings around Washington. John McShane, Papal Knight Jesuit trained, is known as the man who built Washington. He remodeled the White House. But this was all achieved in around the same time after the Second World War ended and they got the United Nations created. But you see here, so they say the principles that underlie American law are the principles of the Roman Catholic Inquisition. Like that's the only implication of this. And you can read here Joseph McCabe's book, History of the Popes. This was written in 1939. He mentions, you can read a lot about Innocent III and Gregory the Ninth in here. But it's worth knowing, reading about these two popes because they're now in the U.S. Capitol building. Incredible. And predictably, this is a hidden fact. No one talks about it in the so-called alternative media. I just became, hip to this literally just yesterday. Here, Gregory the Ninth, though 77 years old at the time of his election. This is from Joseph McCabe's book, History of the Popes. Gregory the Ninth, though 77 years old at the time of his election, had observed with anger what he called the weakness of Hieronymus. And you see here, these same popes are they're in the same noble family. I would say they're the family of murder incorporated. Well, the Vatican and the Roman Catholic Church is in itself murder incorporated. But interestingly, that these two popes are of the same noble family. So he was of the same noble family as Innocent III, Gregory the Ninth, and less inclined to compromise. Even less inclined to compromise than Innocent III. Wow, that's saying a lot. 3 days after his coronation, Gregory the Ninth ordered Emperor Frederick II to sail for Palestine. The emperor set sail from Brindisi, and then shortly afterwards, the Pope, a man of fiery temper, heard that he was back in Italy pleading illness. Without troubling to make a careful inquiry, though there was an epidemic of fever, Gregory solely excommunicated Frederick and denounced him to the whole of Christendom. The truth is that for some years the Pope had been outraged by stories about Frederick's Saracen harems, his favor to infidels, and his disdainful violation of the unjust privileges which Innocent had extorted from his mother for the higher clergy. All of this, suitably embroidered, was put into the Pope's message to the world, and Frederick retorted with a counter-manifesto on the arrogance and greed of the popes. And actually, Peter J. Doiswick has quoted some of Frederick's, I don't know if this is the exact counter-manifesto, but Doiswick quotes Frederick II denouncing the popes in his book, Ecumenism and Romanism. Frederick II called the popes the Antichrist. But continuing, this was read to a cheering crowd on the Capitol in Rome, and when the Pope again excommunicated the Emperor in St. Peter's, the worshippers became so threatening that Gregory fled from the church. So you'll see this Pope is cited by the U.S. government as the foundation of the law. You see these historical figures noted for their work in establishing the principles that underlie American law. This is so exactly what I showed you earlier with the Archbishop James Edward Quigley with Archbishop Quigley said, when the United States rules the world, the Catholic Church will rule the world. This is why the founders of most of the agencies in the United States are Roman Catholics. Roman Catholic Charles Joseph Bonaparte, a descendant of Napoleon, who became the first director of the Bureau of Investigation, which would become the FBI. First director of the Department of Homeland Security, Tom Ridge, was a devout Roman Catholic Knight of Columbus. The first director of the DIA, Defense Intelligence Agency, Joseph Francis Carroll, was a devout Roman Catholic Jesuit trained. The founding father of the CIA, William Donovan, who has a statue in Langley. Maybe I'll pull that up on this video because I mentioned that on the last Strucci team brief. But yeah, William Donovan is a devout Catholic, Papal Knight of Malta, Papal Knight of St. Sylvester. He's known as the founding father of the CIA. This is why there's so much Roman Catholic intrigue in the United States. And why Roman Catholics concentrate in high political positions, why the police force is dominated by Roman Catholics. It's right here in the foundation principles that underlie American law. The Inquisition, Gregory the Ninth. Let me pull up my phone here just to see if anyone's in the chat. Okay, we're going back here to the history of the popes. So they have the same noble family. So okay, so that part was very intriguing that they're the same noble family, considering they're both now in the U.S. Capitol. Okay, so just continuing here from where I was, Frederick's counter manifesto was read to a cheering crowd on the Capitol in Rome. I may be repeating some, but I'm just going to. I think I did read this above, but it's getting a little late here. And when the Pope again excommunicated the Emperor in St. Peter's, the worshippers became so threatening that Gregory fled from the church. The city turned out in arms, and once more the Pope retreated to the provinces. Plainly, there was up to this point much to be said on both sides. It was with the next step that the disreputable campaign of the popes began. Not only were the people of Europe wary of calls to crusades and demands of money in England, the Pope's bulls were trodden underfoot. But Frederick believed that he could get free access for Christians to the shrine of Jerusalem without adding further to the hundreds of thousands of lives which had been sacrificed. Frederick II, was friendly with the Sultan of Egypt, who then controlled Palestine, and he went to see him and offering. He went to see him and offering to help him against the rival Sultan got for him the city of Jerusalem on condition that the Muslims should be free to visit their own shrines there. This humane victory the Pope denounced as a deal with the devil. He again gave Frederick. He even violated one of the most sacred traditions which the popes themselves had laid down for the Crusades, that being Gregory IX, right here in the U.S. Capitol building. That being, any prince who invaded the domains of another who had gone on a crusade was to be excommunicated. Gregory summoned Europe to a crusade against Frederick's kingdom while he was in Jerusalem, and actually sent a small army to take it. The whole world now saw that what the Pope really wanted was territory, and the outcry was so great that Gregory had to retract and lift the ban. So, when you look at this, like this Pope, is in the U.S. Capitol. Gregory IX is mentioned in Doiswick's book here. And you see Gregory IX gives the Franciscan order some privileges, it looks like. Okay, here. So on page 90 of Doiswick's book, Romans, Customs, and Practices, Pope Gregory IX constantly excommunicated Emperor Frederick II, beginning with the bull In Caena Domini of March 21st, 1228. I'll zoom in a bit here. In order to subject the German Empire and to incite assassination of its emperor. This is the foundation of American law here. In order to subject the German Empire and to incite assassination of its emperor, the Pope in 1239 placed the whole world under interdict, i.e., he deprived from the sacraments of salvation even those who had merely breathed the same air as Frederick. Quote, this is a quote from the Pope, Pope Gregory IX. We have placed under ecclesiastical interdict the cities, camps, homes, and other places wherever he may be found, as long as he stays there. Referring to Frederick II, we notice here that the medieval popes begin to use the majestic plural, quote, we, while St. Peter, Christ, and God the Father use the common singular, I. Let me see if I think there is another reference to Gregory III here. Or Gregory IX, pardon me. No, that's it. Okay, so Innocent III is mentioned quite a bit in this book too, Romans, Customs, and Practices by Peter J. Doiswick. And Innocent III is the second pope that's in the U.S. Capitol building. You see here in 1207, Pope Innocent III compelled Poland to pay the Peter's pence in his bull Ad Audentum. Okay, so this is the history of relating to England, and this ties right into the founding of America, because King George III was referred to as the treasurer of the Holy Roman Empire in the 1783 treaty between the United States and England. So in 1209, Pope Innocent III excommunicated King John of England And in 1212, the Pope declared the English king disposed and asked King Philip of France to invade the British Isles unless the king surrendered his kingdom to the Rome. So that being unless the king must surrender the English throne to Rome and agreed to govern it as a papal fief. On May 15th, 1213, King John signed the British Empire over to the Pope of Rome. Quote, John, by the grace of God, King of England, Lord of Ireland, we offer and freely grant to our Lord Pope Innocent and to his Catholic successors the whole kingdom of England and the whole realm of Ireland, holding these islands as a feudal subject, and we swear fealty for them to our above-mentioned Lord Pope Innocent, the same Pope now in the U.S. Capitol. Moreover, in proof of this, our perpetual obligation and grant, we shall establish, including in all respects, the Peter's pence, that the Roman Church shall receive annually 1,000 marks sterling. And Doiswick continues, Pope Innocent III also forced King John of England to sign an oath of fealty, quote, I, John, by the grace of God, King of England and Lord of Ireland, from this hour forward, will be faithful to the Roman Church and to my Lord, Pope Innocent, and to his successors. So help me God in these holy Gospels, May 15th in the 14th year of our reign, end quote. Doiswick, so you see Ireland, or thus before Ireland was completely subdued to England, the British Empire itself lost its independence, as is the fate of all who get entangled with papal politics. Okay, and you see here I have this cited here on my blog, the 1783 treaty between the U.S. and Britain. You know, this is 500 years after Britain lost its independence to Rome, but it's right here. So now you see here the British king or queen is now merely like a trustee or like a manager, managing the Pope's empire essentially. But you see right here is quoted that Prince George III is referred to as, let's see here, by the grace of God, King of Great Britain, France, and Ireland, defender of the faith, Duke of Brunswick, Lemberg, Arch-Treasurer, and Prince-Elector of the Holy Roman Empire, end quote. That's what the King of England is referred to. And Pope Innocent III famously condemned the Magna Carta. Doiswick mentions that, or you can see that right here. But it's mentioned also in this book. I'm just going to show you proof, like right from the historical source. You can see I'm not making it up. This Pope was initiated the book burning in the Catholic Church. Going back to the Dark Ages. You see here, so beginning with Pope Innocent III, all heretical authors were burned along with their heretical works. You see here, Doiswick gives Segarelli, Secco, John Savonarola, William Tyndale, John Wycliffe, and Luther. Wycliffe and Luther are exceptions to the rule. Even like Giordano Bruno was burned alive by the Vatican for promoting heretical ideas, through his works, for instance. But the Pope Innocent III, who initiated the burning of heretical authors, is now in the U.S. This is right from the architect of the Capitol.gov, and they say the principles of Innocent III are the foundations of American law. We think it is incredible. And there's, I know the Inquisition is mentioned. Where was this here? I think both of these popes are mentioned in this chapter. Okay, so right here. Okay, so Pope Innocent III and Saint Dominic founded the Dominican order and instituted the Inquisition. Would you look at that? Pope that instituted the Inquisition in the U.S. Capitol building. So you see, it's pretty foolish to say that the Roman Catholic Church isn't controlling the U.S. Definitely pretty foolish to say that. But here, Pope Innocent III and Saint Dominic founded the Dominican order and instituted the Inquisition. The Fourth Lateran Council, now called the 12th Ecumenical Councils, vowed to exterminate all heretics and granted a full indulgence to the exterminators. This is the foundation of American law. Okay. Quote, We excommunicate and anathematize every heresy. The condemned shall be handed over to their secular authorities or to their deputies to be punished in due process. If they belong to the clergy, they shall first be degraded. The possessions of those thus condemned shall be confiscated. If a secular ruler neglects to fulfill the demands of the church, he shall be excommunicated. It shall be reported to the supreme pontiff. He shall exterminate the heretics and possess the land without dispute. These are the principles of American law. He shall exterminate the heretics and possess the land without dispute. Catholics who assume the cross and devote themselves to the extermination of heretics shall enjoy the same indulgence and privilege as those who goes to the Holy Land. I believe that's the end of the quote here. Oh no, he continues. Oh, sorry, man, I lost the page. Okay, sorry, my computer is acting up here. I do want to get more into the photos here. This is just some, key background information on these two popes that are in the Capitol building. So those who go to the Holy Land. Okay, so that was the end of the quote. So this came from Pope Innocent III. It's literally so you will exterminate the heretics and possess the land without dispute. Catholics who assume the cross and devote themselves to the extermination of heretics shall enjoy the same indulgence and privileges as those who go to the Holy Land. That's the foundation of American law, and that should genuinely, I think, concern everyone in general. Let me just go. Okay, I'm going to pull up my phone here. We're going here more to the symbolism. Here's the cornerstone plaque I mentioned. So going staying on the Capitol building. If you've noticed on the Dome of Persephone Dome, Capitol. I'm going to show you the Roman fascia. I'm just going to go into now more of the Roman fascias. Just the Statue of Freedom. These are some of the more occultly hidden ones. So on the top of the Capitol, the Capitol building was the property of Daniel Carroll, who was essentially like a lay Jesuit. Daniel Carroll was related to the Jesuit priest John Carroll, who founded Georgetown University. But on this Persephone, the Statue of Freedom, on this website they say she's like a female archetype or allegorical figure. This is like essentially like a Roman goddess of war figure here. There's actually 12 Roman fascias here underneath. There's 12 of them around the center. Pretty clear symbolism of who's in control. Persephone. I believe, I think they do officially cite her as Persephone as the goddesses they're referring to. There's 12 Roman fascias underneath right here. 12 of them. It's right in plain sight. And actually, and this is another part here. So going into statues, so staying on this AOC.gov website, it's literally a treasure trove of information. There's literally statues of Jesuit priests. Okay, go to site. Okay, I see here. Okay, there's literally Jesuit priests in Congress. Here's a statue. I did an article on Eusebio Kino. This Jesuit priest actually founded cattle farming. And he was in Arizona and Southern California in the early 1700s, late 1600s. You see, there's a statue of the Jesuit Eusebio Kino in Congress. Here, Eusebio Kino joined the Society of Jesus in 1665. You look at that right there. And I have an article on this Jesuit here, Eusebio Kino, on my Jesuit World Order page. And then there's also a statue of the Jesuit priest Jacques Marquette at the Congress. Here, it was put in 1896. And this Jesuit priest, Jacques Marquette, is what Marquette University is, or who Marquette University is named after. There's a statue of Charles Carroll, one of the three Catholic signers, I think, on the Declaration of Independence. Charles Carroll, directly related to Jesuit priest John Carroll, the founder of Georgetown University. Charles Carroll was a wealthy slaveholder who primarily financed the American Revolutionary War. And I showed you earlier in this video, Charles Carroll is in the Bermuda corridors in the Capitol building as well. But here's Charles Carroll's bust, the late Jesuit Charles Carroll. You see here, as a Roman Catholic, he was barred from entering politics, practicing law, and voting. There were some, because essentially the way the Jesuits came into America was that they came in to by setting up the religious freedom statutes, allowed it so that the Roman Catholic Church could never ever be legally challenged or prosecuted in the United States. And that's admitted by Samuel Adams, of all people, in a letter to Thomas Jefferson in 1816 that you can read on my Jesuit World Order blog. Adams says that we have to we can't do anything about it. Our religious freedom laws make it so that we're forced to let the Jesuits in, but he said it'll be like a miracle if they don't put the free trial of our elections to work, or something along the lines like that. But it wasn't very long though after that Roman Catholics started getting full legal rights back into the U.S. But yeah, initially you're dealing with a population the layman population. Charles Carroll is in the aristocratic class. The laymen, in America at the founding were by far a majority Protestants at this time, and many Protestants in America fled to the land, fleeing papal tyranny in Europe. So there was kind of a rightful militant skepticism of Catholic intrigue at this time. But Charles Carroll has his statue at the Congress. Here's a statue of Edward Douglas White, the Jesuit-trained Chief Justice who signed off on the Federal Reserve Act and who signed off on the 16th Amendment. Douglas White was a Confederate soldier, educated, you see here, at the Jesuit College, Catholic Mount St. Mary's in Edmundsburg, and went to Jesuit Georgetown University. He was appointed to President Grover Cleveland to the Supreme Court. You see, they have this papist lay Jesuit Chief Justice here now, Edward Douglas White, in the Congress in the form of a statue. This is this hidden history, and it's all right on the official government site, and it shows that the Catholic Church is in control. Here's a Franciscan priest, the missionary of California, Father Junipero Serra. You see here, Father Junipero Serra, given to the National Statuary Hall Collection by California in 1931. Another proof that the Catholic Church is in full control of the U.S. is how many actual Catholic churches and shrines are official U.S. government historical sites, like the Shrine of the Immaculate Conception in Washington, D.C., for instance, or the Alamo Church. You see here, Father Junipero Serra joined the Franciscan order. He was the missionary to Southern California, and right in around the time of before the revolution took place, in and around that time. But he has a statue of him in the Congress. I recommend you go through these statues. Even they even have a statue of a Catholic nun here, Mother Joseph. She was born in 1823, born in Montreal, Canada. She led a group of 5 missionaries to the Pacific Northwest Territories of the United States. Supposedly, she built hospitals, Indian schools, and orphanages. Knowing just the disgusting history of what goes on in Roman Catholic orphanages, I bet this Mother Joseph enabled tons of abuse to take place at these institutions, and now she has a statue of herself in the Congress. So I still haven't. I'm sure there's even more stuff on this website that I'm just really going through it now in detail after the last chat I did with Clint. So I recommend you check it out. But literally, there's statues of Jesuit priests and lay Jesuits in the Congress. Actually, there's this Catholic priest here, Father Damien, has a statue here. This guy was this charlatan Catholic, or like a charlatan medical healer in Hawaii. Father Damien, born born in Belgium. The son of well-to-do parents, he entered Sacred Heart's congregation in Louvain in 1859, and 5 years later ordained a Catholic priest in the Cathedral of Our Lady of Peace in Honolulu. And Father Damien, and how this works is the National Statutorial Hall Collection in Congress, each state has 2 statues that represent their state. And the Catholic priest here, Father Damien, represents Hawaii. But there's supposedly Father Damien was canonized in 2009. I remember Barack Obama was like praising Father Damien when he was canonized. But going back, like when Father Damien died, I believe this is still back in here in the archives. Yeah, this was in the story Father Damien Leaves Molokai. I remember, where was this here? Yeah, this is from like a Catholic News Archive source. But this was when I was doing research on the Jesuit-trained U.S. Army General Hugh Aloysius Drum. But I found out the Jesuit-trained general actually was in charge of flying the body of Father Damien from Hawaii to Belgium on U.S. taxpayer dollars. You see here the remains of the martyr of Molokai were disinterred, placed aboard on an army bomber for transport to Honolulu and conveyed to the Catholic mission. There they were to lie in a state until the U.S. Army Transport Republic sailed a week later, bearing them for the first to San Francisco, where a great ceremony honoring the martyr, Father Damien, was planned, and then to Panama for transfer to the Belgian training ship Mercator. The body is to be accompanied by the Reverend Maurice Koopman to Belgium, where he will be permanently enshrined. So you see the Jesuit-trained general right here, Hugh Aloysius Drum, which the Fort Drum military base is named after, now in Watertown, New York. And Hugh A. Drum had a Jesuit priest as his brother. You see Hugh A. Drum, I'll say here, the morning of the disinterment, 10 airplanes, 2 specialty chartered commercial ships, 2 pursuits, 2 Army amphibians, 3 bombers provided by the United States Army through Jesuit-trained Major General Hugh Aloysius Drum, commanding the Hawaiian Department, and 1 Navy amphibian provided through Commodore Wayne Todd, naval aide to Joseph B. Poindexter, took off from John Rogers Airport, zoomed over to Honolulu and the Pacific, headed for the island of Molokai, and in 40 minutes later landed on the small emergency field a mile from Kalupa. Going by plane were the Most Reverend Stephen P. Allencast, the very Vicar Apostolic to Hawaii, the very Reverend Patrick Logan, the Honorable Victor Lapp, a Belgian consul. You see here Jacob Ordenstein, a mortician, and Major William A. Boyle, who represent the United States Army. Reverend Claes, a distant cousin of Father Damien, was there. The Reverend Sile Erle, grandnephew of the martyr. The Reverend Maurice Koopman. The point being, do you see how this Catholic priest gets literally this probably cost hundreds of thousands of dollars to give him this grand U.S. military world tour. They flew his body all over the world and on military planes before taking it to Belgium. But this was an article here. Father Damien Leaves Molokai, and this it's actually a pretty good article. I recommend you can find this. If you just type in the title of this article on Google, I'm sure it'll pop up. It was written by George W. Peavy, the Hawaii correspondent for the NCWC. But, Father Damien's bust is now at the Capitol building. Right there. It's right in plain sight just through the symbolism, even just right at the headquarters of the U.S. government, who's in control. You can start going into the fascias a bit here. I'll show you the mace. This is coming from another government website, historyhouse.gov. This is just a cult. This is further just occulted information, like the plaques of the popes, which show who's really in control. You see the Whenever and wherever the U.S. House of Representatives meets, the historic artifact is there. It is the mace. The mace is made up of 3 parts: a bundled shaft of 13 rods, a silver globe, and an eagle spread with wings. The bundled rods of the mace resemble the same fascists used in Adolf Hitler's government, Catholic Adolf Hitler, and Catholic Benito Mussolini's dictatorship, his fascist dictatorship. And you see the word fasces is like where the root word fascism comes from. Your fasces used in the ancient Roman Republic symbolize strength through unity. The bundled rods are much stronger together than they are separately. Okay, so this was designed back in 1841. These Roman fasces. Here's the zoomed in photo. As you can see, it's a Roman fascia. It's just like the official centennial of Congress, which I showed you earlier in this video. And there's the Gregorian eagle. The official centennial plaque of Congress has 2 Roman fascias on each side. You know, the symbolism is right here in plain sight. And actually, there's another interesting. Just typing in fascias on the search bar here. The architect of the Capitol site. The photo here, America in History, designed again by the papal artist Constantino Brumidi. This was in the Capitol Rotunda. Brumidi designed the rotunda, and he did the apotheosis of Washington. And like how the fasces appears in the apotheosis of Washington, here in the rotunda, on the work America in History, the Roman fasces is right here, where you see the Gregorian eagle is gripping the Roman fasces right here. This is a very occulted history. You see right here on the House chamber, you can see here the fasces right here. They admitted on the website that the fasces are in the House chamber. An American flag occupies the center and is flanked by 2 bronze Roman fasces right there on the website. There are the fasces here. These are the same fasces as the Knights of Columbus logo, and again, Pope Alexander VI is on the doors of Columbus at Congress. I'll show you here the Knights of Columbus. This fasces is on the Knights of Columbus logo. John Boehner is a Knight of Columbus and Jesuit trained, for instance, former Speaker of the House. And actually, John Boehner. I have a video of him and Patrick Leahy that you guys should watch on my YouTube. But John Boehner actually admits that, he says that after the War of 1812, the United States government was actually going to place their headquarters at Georgetown. So the headquarters of the U.S. government would actually move to Georgetown University. That was proposed even after the War of 1812. The Boehner is a Knight of Columbus, trained by the Jesuits at Xavier. But Jeb Bush, the governor of Florida, is a Knight of Columbus. There's many of them scattered throughout. Like Tom Ridge, the first Department of Homeland Security, was a Knight of Columbus. Michael Steele, the former head of the Republican National Committee, Michael Steele was a Knight of Columbus, trained by Jesuits at Georgetown. The Conrad Hilton, the founder of the Hilton Hotel Empire, was a Knight of Columbus, for instance. The point being, though, you see the Roman fascias, though, right here. It's right on the KFC logo. And I have 5 videos on my YouTube channel of President Ronald Reagan speaking to the Knights of Columbus, and they were giving him standing ovation cheers because he recreated diplomatic relations from the United States to the Vatican, because they were temporarily broken off. And again, they were officially broken off after Lincoln was killed, because there were probably 5 or 6 presidents from the time. Maybe even 7. Yeah, I'd say even 5. Yeah, maybe even 7 presidents from the time Lincoln died to when Reagan recreated diplomatic relations that had, quote, personal ambassadors to the Vatican, like President Franklin Roosevelt, who had Knight of Malta Myron C. Taylor, the president of the United States Steel Corporation and the chairman of the Council on Foreign Relations, as his personal ambassador to the Vatican. You see here the same fascists as on the National Sheriff's Association in the United States that's on the Knights of Columbus. The same one that's on what was the I have so many tabs open here. I just want to make sure I'm getting the Let me show that painting. I believe it's Miss America. No, America in History. The same fascists appear on the America in History Statue of Freedom. You have to go into that one. I'll show you here the United States Tax Court. Right there in plain sight. Yeah, so here's three. These are three huge ones right in a row. You have the United States Tax Court has this Roman fascist symbol right here. United States Office of the Administrative Courts, Roman fasces right here. United States Senate, two Roman fasces right here. I'll show you here, United States. There's the United States Military Police seal, the Roman fasciae right there. You know, so all the symbolism is in place. And, you know, I'm not even going into like the Roman laurel wreaths, you know, because this video would turn into like a 4-hour video. But all the symbolism is right in plain sight that shows you who's in control. It's actually the fasces is in the seal of the state of Colorado. There's the fasces here, like the Illuminati. Like the Illuminati was created by the Jesuits, Adam Weishaupt, like literally a lay Jesuit. You see the Illuminati all-seeing eye with the Roman fasces right here on the seal of the state of Colorado. I showed on the stream with Clint the seal of the city of Brooklyn with the same Roman fasciae symbol right here, the Roman goddess Columbia. And actually, in the Bermuda corridors, I don't know if I mentioned. I don't think I got to this. In the Bermuda corridors, and again, these Bermuda corridors in the Capitol building are modeled off of the Raphael loggias in the Vatican right here. But the Bermuda corridors, there's the the Roman goddess of war is present. You see her name is Lunette of Bologna, the Roman goddess of war. A war goddess. You know, the Catholic, the United States government is, or the U.S. military has been the sword of the Catholic Church, essentially. You know, that's what this is saying, you know, right in the plain sight. And there's that, you know, James Edward Quigley, as I mentioned a couple times in this video, said that when the United States rules the world, the Catholic Church will rule the world, that being the Archbishop of Chicago. Yeah, I think that's all for this one, though, YouTube. I recommend everyone go through more of the AOC.gov website, and you'll just see all sorts of, you know, gems on here that show that the popes are in control. Like literally, like the Columbus, like the Pope Alexander VI being in the U.S. Congress, Pope Innocent III being in the U.S. Capitol building, and Pope Gregory IX in the U.S. Capitol. Because that's a full you know, that's a full image of Pope Alexander VI. Like you know, it's just really well hidden, you know. But it is in plain sight because this is right from the you know, the .gov website. Yeah, I'll have a check in the chat now. I'll leave a link someone to the I'll leave a link to these. Sorry, I'm reading now the comments just before we go. I kind of was in the zone there with the research. Yeah, absolutely. Jeb Bush is a Knight of Columbus. Yeah, honestly, it's incredible how, like, I wish I knew about this information when I wrote the preface I did for the Dollar in the Vatican, because this is really like the gold mine of information. You literally have the two popes that founded the Inquisition are in the U.S. Capitol building, Gregory the Ninth and Innocent the Third. You know, and it explains everything. It explains why, like like when you look into the founding of the Department of Homeland Security, which is essentially like an inquisitorial Gestapo. You know, all roads lead to the Jesuits. It's the reason why the Patriot Act was drafted by a Jesuit priest, Vite. You know, it's that same inquisitorial spirit which dominates. You know, in America, it is like the ruler of like the world, and essentially in terms of secular nation states. There's no nation state that is as powerful as the United States. So it's very concerning, you know, that you see them, you know, using these uh, these papal plaques, and actually, I was reading this was accomplished right around the same time. I remember in Catholic Imperialism and World Freedom by Avro Manhattan, he uh, wrote that the Brazilian Congress, in a very Catholic country of Brazil, but they put a bust of Pope Pius XII in Brazil. And America is named after an Italian. Actually, I believe, yeah. What was the name of that Italian that America was? I remember I've heard Johnny mention that before. I can't think of that on the top of my head. Just going into long term. I'm reading your comment here, Jeremy. Long term, this week, Jeremy said with the flood of Roman Catholics coming in from Mexico and Canada, the Democrats are likely to win after Trump. I think that's the case too. I think long term, the Democrats, even like I have it on my channel, the Jesuit Thomas Rees said that the Vatican is closer to the Democrats. That they control both, but like long term, I see the Democrats coming into power because they're going to go for the strict gun control and discontinue like the flooding of the illegal immigration waves. And it's not a coincidence that like when Roman Catholic Tony Blair was Prime Minister of Britain, that the flood of immigrants came into Britain. Like it's a Catholic phenomena. They want to bring as many or flood, traditionally, Protestant nation states, historically Protestant nation states, with as many immigrants as possible. But I would say with the U.S. at this point, though, it's just it's more like strength in numbers. They want more because the Catholics are indoctrinated to vote for Catholic political candidates. So that's ultimately what it's all about. I just got to plug in my charger here. I'm just reading through more of the comments. Yeah, if you could pull up. Oh, that's a Amerigo Okay, thanks for. Okay, I'm gonna type this in. This will be a good way, I think, to Wow. Italian explorer, financier, navigator, cartographer for the Republic of Florence, sailing for Portugal. This makes sense because there's I showed I'll link the sources. You can see the Pope Alexander the Sixth at the U.S. Capitol building, and he would have been Amerigo Vespucci, if I'm pronouncing that right. This individual would have been sailing on behalf of Pope Alexander the Sixth if he was sailing for Portugal. But America is named after, yeah, it is phonetically like Americho, America. Yeah, I could see that. That's interesting. Have there been articles done on this? Oh wow, the Guardian. Wow, I know wow, interesting. Oh, thanks for supplying that name there, someone. Oh, absolutely. Yeah, Trump is the antithesis. Democrat gender gun control is the synthesis. I went into a bit of the Jesuitical right versus left paradigm on a recent article or blog post I put together. It goes into Democrats and Republicans, but more highlighting like third party groups because the Jesuit control is, so profound where like they control all of the alternate left wing groups and all the alternate right wing groups. But I was highlighting the Heritage Foundation and the Democratic Socialists of America. The Democratic Socialists of America were founded by Jesuit trained Michael Harrington, and they're a quote far left group, and a quote far right Heritage Foundation was founded by Jesuit trained Edwin Follner. So like the Jesuits control the extreme left and the extreme right. A lot of people like Heinrich Himmler modeled the Nazi SS off the Jesuit order, and Hitler modeled the Nazi Party off the Jesuit order. That's in Walter Schellenberg's memoirs titled Hitler's Secret Service. I think Amerigo. I believe that was the first name there. Yeah, it looks like Americo was his first name. But yeah, I have to look at that. That's really interesting because it all lines up that that the Roman Catholic Church occultly created the United States Republic and just really modeled it off of the Roman Republic from of 500 to from 200 BC to 200 AD. That's how I see it, and just the entire legal system. Like we went into the show with Clint, the emergency powers, statues. It's all based strictly from the Roman Republic. But yeah, I think that's all for this one, YouTube. Peace and love, and Trump being a Knight of Malta. Yeah, I don't know. Well, you can see Trump. He when he was at the Al Smith dinner in 2016, he admitted to saying that Trump he went there as a boy. His father took him there, so that's intriguing to me. Trump was openly educated by Jesuits. He has sent 3 of his kids to Jesuit institutions. He has stacked his appointments with probably over 75 Jesuit alumni have been appointed to Trump in various positions. His older sister, Marianne Trump Bailey, gave $4 million to Jesuit Fairfield University in 2016. Yeah, if Trump's not a Knight of Malta, he's definitely he should be just with given all of his affiliations. I have the video on my channel where Donald Trump gave his message to Catholics, and he says that he's going to work hand in hand with the American Catholics in his administration. And Donald Trump was comedically said that prior administrations have been tough on Catholics. Donald Trump is a reality star, Jesuit trained. He's a clown. But yeah, take care, guys. I'm going to sign off here. I deliver pizza right now for a living. Yeah, I got a economics degree from Brock University, but right now I'm just delivering pizza for cash. I'm getting by, but not living the high life by any means. But I get enough to get by. But yeah, God bless all of you. Take care. Thanks for tuning in, everyone, and I'll see you all in the next video. I think we may do a Cerucci team brief tomorrow at around 4:30 Eastern. But peace and love, everyone. Nam Nas.